This is the second video for lessons 7.5 and 7.6, factoring using Xbox. So we are on page 26 at the bottom. So a couple things I want to show you here. First of all, this down on the bottom. This is what the problem is going to look like when you get it. So you're going to be given something like this, and you're going to be told to factor this. Notice it's a trinomial, 3 terms. It's got an x squared, an x to the 1, and then a constant term. That is, majority of the time, going to be what your equation looks like. This is what your answer will look like. So it is the opposite of what we did in section 7.2. In section 7.2, you were given 2 factors. You drew a box, put the factors on the outside, filled the box, did the multiplication, and simplified, and that is what your answer looked like. Now we're going the other way. So this is what your answer will look like. The first thing you need to do is to identify A, B, and C. That's how we fill or put the numbers in the x's. Up here, we gave you the numbers for the x's, but actually those are going to come right from your equation because all you're going to be given is this. So this is a quadratic equation. The x to the second power is what makes it a quadratic. In standard form means the biggest exponent comes first. So you're going to want to make sure your trinomial is in standard form. The number or the coefficient in front of the x squared is what we call the a, because in standard form it's ax squared plus bx plus c. So a is the coefficient of the x squared. So in our example, a is 3. B is the coefficient of the x. So in our example, b is 7. C is the constant term, which makes sense. C, constant, that's the what I like to call the plain old number hanging off the end, and that is 2. In this example, they're all positive, so I didn't put any signs in front of them, but you could put plus. Okay, now we're going to use this A, B, and C to put the numbers at the top and bottom of our x. So this shows you right here. It says at the top of your x, you want to put A multiplied by C. So our A and C are 3 times 2. So the top of the x would be 3 times 2. And it says put whatever your B value is at the bottom. So think B bottom. So your B goes on the bottom. Now, typically you don't want to draw your x twice, so you will probably do that multiplication before you fill out your x. Okay, so I have 6 on the top, 7 on the bottom. Now, this is what you did above. We need to figure out 2 values that multiply to give us 6 and add to give us 7. So this is where you'll start by listing your factors of 6. And you'll look at those factors of 6 and think, which set of these factors, when I add them, will I get a 7? Well, that would be 1 and 6. And then I'm going to encourage you to get in the habit of circling those 2 values that you found there, because that's going to become important in the next step. All right, let's flip over and do our first example. Flip your paper over. So example 1. There it is. Okay. So the first thing you want to do, I'm trying to get this centered for you. A little bit of a delay here. There we go. The first thing you want to do is identify, oh, this video is hopping all over the place. I'm going to slide. Is identify your A, B, and C. So again, A is the coefficient of the x squared. So A is 2. B is the coefficient of the x to the 1. So B is 5. C is the constant term that hangs off the end. All right, now, because these are your notes, put a little reminder that the number that goes at the top of my x is going to be A times C. The value or the number that goes at the bottom of my x is going to be B. So A times C is 2 times 2, or 4, and B is 5. So I am looking for factors of 4, which are only 1 and 4, and 2 and 2. Two numbers that multiply to give me 4 and add to give me 5. So those would be 1 and 4. 1 and 4 multiply to give me positive 4. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 plus 4 is 5. When you identify those numbers on the right and left of your X, put a circle around those because we're going to use those again. Now, what goes in the box is your original problem that we're asking you to solve. I'm going to write something here for the video that you do not have to put in your notes. So I want you to think back, just watch me do this here, to section 7.2 when you were multiplying binomials. So I'm actually going to multiply these two binomials that are in your notes. They're going to be the answer to the problem that we're factoring right now. But in 7.2, if I gave you these and it said find the product, you would put those factors outside your box, and then you would multiply and fill your box, and you would get this. And then the next step in section 7.2 was you took your answer out of the box and combine like terms. So you would have gotten 2x squared plus 5x plus 2. Okay? So when you filled your box, you had 4 terms. But your final answer for those 7.2 problems often had 3 terms because we would combine the like terms and our final answer would be a trinomial. So now you want to think we're going backwards. So now we have to find the outside of the box. We are given the inside of the box. So let's go back here and figure out, well, what goes in the box? Your problem that you're factoring is what goes in the box. If you notice, the problem that you're factoring has 3 terms. It's a trinomial. This is a term, this is a term, this is a term. But the box has 4 spots. So if I put my problem in the box, I'm going to have an empty space. I don't want an empty space. That's where these 2 values that you found over here when you did your X come in. So this first term, I'm going to put that in my box, 2x squared. The next term of my problem that I'm factoring is 5x. But instead of writing 5x, I want you to think 1x plus 4x. So I'm splitting the 5x into 1x plus 4x. So when I asked you to circle these, because you're going to use them again, these are going to go in your box right here, and you're going to put an X with those numbers that you found in your X. So I'm putting this equation in the box, but I'm choosing to, instead of writing 5x, I'm going to write 1x and 4x. And you can see if I added those, I would get my 5x. And then this bottom box gets a plus 2. So this is my original problem inside the box. The only difference is I split up the 5 into 1 and 4. All right. So now I need to find what goes on the outside of my box, what goes here and what goes here. Again, the opposite of what we did in 7.2. Let me go back to this problem for a minute. In 7.2, we were given these and we filled in the box. Our box is filled in, we need to figure out the outside. So we know from 7.2 that whatever number I put here and whatever number I put here, when I multiply them, I need to get 2x squared. Well, there's only one way to get a 2. To get a 2, I have to do 1 times 2. And there's only one way to get an x squared. That would be x times x gets me x squared. So to get a 2x squared, I have to multiply 2x times x. So I know I need to put maybe a 2x here and an x here, or maybe the other way around, maybe a 2x here and an x here. So how do I figure out whether the 2x goes here or here? I want you to look across this row here. If you look across this row and think, if you're finding the common factor of both of these terms, 2x squared and 4x, I can see that they have a 2 in common, because 2 divides evenly into 2 and 2 divides into 4. So I'm going to say they have a 2 in common. I can also see that they both have at least one x. This term has one x, this term has 2, so they both have one x. So that's how I figure out that my 2x goes here and my x goes here. And then when I multiply, 2x to the first power times x to the first power, I get 2x to the second power. So let me just show you, if you look down this column, the greatest common factor of 2x squared and 1x is a 1. The greatest common factor of the numbers 2 and 1 is 1. And the greatest common factor of x squared and x to the 1 is x to the 1. So that also works. And then at this point, do that check. If I multiply 1x times 2x, I get 2x squared. Okay, that's probably the hardest part. Let's continue. Now I need a number here. I know whatever I put here, when I multiply it by 2x, I need to get 4x. So you can think in your head, what times 2 will get me 4? Well, that seems like 2. Seems like I need a 2 here. Here's another way you can check it. If you look down this column, what's the greatest common factor of 4x and 2? Well, that would be 2, because 2 divides into 2 evenly and 2 divides into 4 evenly. So if I multiply 2 by 2x, I get 4x. Something else I want you to notice right now, if you have an x in both of these boxes in this column, you're going to have an x up here. If you look at this column, I have an x here, but I don't have an x here. That means I will not have an x up here. So that's also a clue that you just need a 2 there. You have the x over here, so when you multiply 2x by 2, you get 4x. If I look across this row, I have an x and a 2. I don't have x's in both of these, so I won't have an x out here. Here's what I'm going to think. I know I have a 1x here and a 1x here. Well, 1x times what number will get me 1x? Well, that's just 1, or positive 1. Because if you multiply 1 by anything, 1 times 1x is going to be 1x. 1 times 7 is going to be 7. So 1x times 1 will get me 1x. And then again, if you look across this row, the greatest common factor of 1x and 2 is just 1. Now, if you did it right, when you multiply these two numbers, you should get a 2. So 2 times 1 is 2. So that means I did it correctly. If I multiply the outside, I get what's on the inside. Remember, we can't change the inside of the box. That was given to us. We can only change or create the outside. This is positive, so I'm going to have you put a 2 there. And then I'm just going to have you put these parentheses here to remind you these are your factors. We are not done. You can't leave it like this. You have to write the 2 factors multiplied together for your answer. So one of my factors is this, 1x plus 2. The other factor is 2x plus 1. So your final answer will be these 2 binomials multiplied together. That is my final answer. You'll notice up here I gave you the answer before we started, just so you could kind of see where we were headed. You'll also notice I wrote them in a different order. I put the x plus 2 first, and the 2x plus 1 second, that doesn't matter. Both of these would be correct. When you're multiplying, order does not matter. I suggest at this point you pause the video and make sure you have all of these notes in your note packet. And then I'm going to do example 2 in the next video.